Hey everybody, welcome back to week three of the Field Pass podcast. Brandon and I are here going to be covering this week's happenings of the NFL season, some of the big players who came out on top, and some of our surprising teams uh, that fell, I guess, to misery, a lot to 0 and 2 misery, which is something that we've seen over the course of the past couple seasons have been really hard for even good teams to crawl back from into the playoffs. I think over the past th 2 to 3 years, it might have been four, some number under five. There have only been like over only like I think 2 to 3 teams that have made a playoff running after going 0 and 2. So it's going to be exciting to talk about some of the teams that we didn't expect this from, um, and kind of weighing whether or not this is a slow start versus like an actual genuine issue. So I think we'll get around to that as we go and cover these games. But Brain, do you have anything to say about this week?
I was in a lot of surprises this week. I
Yeah.
thought the predictions I made were fairly simple, and I got a lot of them wrong because they ended up not being simple. So I
Yeah,
mean,
me
it's
too.
it's football's getting interesting, and you like it this early in the year. And I mean, were a couple big injuries, but it's been better this year.
Yeah, we don't have like I don't think we have like, I mean, other than Jordan Love, who went down with a large injury, and then Tua with his concussion, that I think it's certainly a conversation whether or not he should come back at all. We haven't really had that many injuries, or at least I can't think of many off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, I know Pacheco's out.
Yeah,
Cooper Cup is has not been placed on
yeah,
IR yet. I don't know about Debo, so there's some. But I feel like last year there was four or five every week.
yeah.
And obviously it's not been that much. There are still injuries are going to happen. There's going to be probably one every week. It's just keeping them to a minimum, which it looks like it's happening. The hip trap tackle has been. I've seen. I know I can think of two examples right now of where I saw it last week and it was not flagged. So hopefully the league is trying to fix that. But other than that, and because I mean that caused a lot of injuries last year. That was like half of them. So, and that's pretty much been eliminated. I've only seen really two obvious ones, but other than that, we're all good.
Yeah, I think that we should, with that in mind, since we have such a good season, let's go ahead and get right into the headlines that I think we can glean from this most recent weekend. The first one I think that you mentioned that we wanted to start off with is kind of like heat checking the Saints. Like, are the Saints really this good, or is it the same old Cowboys? We saw this Cowboys defense come off like on a really great start against an incredibly competent Cleveland defense, and going into Cleveland and being able to get the win. All the while scoring, I think it was like over 30 points on them, which is pretty embarrassing from a Cleveland perspective. But then in the next week, they go back home and they allow the Saints to punch them in the mouth. Derek Carr leading through Alvin Kamara and Rashid Shaheed. A number of touchdowns, and this game was basically over by the end of the third, well, like mid third quarter. So, Brayden, what do you think about whether or not this Saints off, especially the offense, is legit?
I think you can. They're legit to a point. I don't think they'll keep up their production that they've had in these 2 weeks. I don't think anyone expects them to. Now that I've seen them in 2 weeks, I have higher expectations um of them now, but I feel like the Cowboys did not wake up for this game. And if this hadn't happened in years past for the Cowboys, I would maybe think the Saints are better. But like this happens a couple times this season for the Cowboys where they just don't wake up for games because they undervalue their opponent and then they get punched in the mouth and don't know what to do. So I think that's what kind of happened here. I need to see more out of the Saints to be convinced that they're a top NFL NFC team. But this win is like it means something. It's a win that you can bounce off of. You keep Derek Carr confidence because he's looked amazing. Can he keep that up is the real question. I don't really know because he hasn't been able to really do a whole season of this in his career, but I'm not sure. We know the Cowboys can't keep it up because I mean, it looks like the same old Cowboys. It looks like them every year. One year they look like a Super Bowl contender, and then one year they look like a non-playoff team. and they always have it at the wrong time. This time it's at week 2, so they have time to recover. They just need to minimize that later in the season. So I would say same old Cowboys for now, but keep your eye out on the Saints.
Yeah, I'm gonna fall on that as well. I think I'm not so sure about whether or not they're gonna be able to keep this momentum. If they were, um, it's something that I don't necessarily think many of us expected outside of the biggest diehard Saints fans or the most like Nostradamuses within the sports analytics community. Um, I am really impressed though with the personnel and really how everyone looks. You have Chris Olave coming off um like I think this is his third season now, which should be encouraging for Saints fans to see that he's progressed well. But he hasn't necessarily even been the weapon that shined the most. I thought Rashid Shaheed was has made an appearance and stepped up to the task. And then Alvin Kamara is back to his like seemingly his heyday. So if they can keep him going, keep the momentum that he has right now, I mean, there's really no way that you can stop him. I mean, he had was it four touchdowns? Uh, it's 3 or 4 touchdowns
I think it was
in this most
4.
recent game. Yeah, 4 touchdowns against the Cowboys defense, like as we said before, is to put it simply, no slouches when it comes to their defensive front. So I'm really happy with how the Saints looks. I think they should be excited. The one thing I will say is I'm doubtful that they're going to be able to keep this momentum. But I would love for them to prove me wrong because they're always a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Olave. I think at least right now, Rashid Shaheed. Wow, I never said that name out loud before. That's a tough one. Is the wide receiver one as right now? Olave has actually had. I mean, fantasy players know I don't have him, but like he just from the stats I've looked at, he's looked disappointing.
Yeah.
He hasn't really put up production, and they're still playing this good. So imagine if they can get him involved because you know, I know he is a deep receiver threat. He may not be the most physical receiver, but if you let him loose, he's gone.
Yeah,
So
and I
if
think
they
that
can
there are
get,
going to be opportunities like for that.
yeah, so if they can get him going, who knows what the Saints offense can do? But it really, Kamara's good. I think his run game will always be there, but it's the quarterback play with Derek Carr. Can he be consistent for a full year? And we'll see.
It's a great question. Speaking of consistent quarterback play and something that fortunately we've been able to see out of a particular player, let's take a trip down to Tampa Bay and talk about the Bucks, who got revenge in their game this week, which I thought was compelling. I'm seeing the Bucks ranked in like top 3 in overall rankings. Braden, what do you think of this weekend with the Bucks matchup?
I mean, Baker's balling.
Yeah.
He just recorded his longest rush, which was 11 yards. Uh, but I mean, he is looking very good. And if I were you in the Browns community, seeing how Deshaun has played, I would be a little bit upset because he's looking like his old self again, and it's good to see because even though Baker played on the Browns, I think I always liked him. He has that little cocky side to him, which I really like. And I mean, he's controlled this offense. I feel like the Lions lost this game more than the Bucks won it because they had 8 plays inside the 15-yard line through. I mean, especially in that final 4 plays, it was like screen pass, rush to get the yards back, screen pass again, and then incompletion. It's just like it was terrible play calling down late for the Lions, so I think that's why they lost the game. Now, can't discredit the Bucks at all because the Lions are a very tough opponent, and you have to play very well to beat them. So the Bucks are looking very good. They we talked about the Saints who are in their division. I think the Buccaneers, even though the offense hasn't been there, they look better altogether. So I really like how the Bucks are playing right now, and I have more confidence in Baker than I do in Derek Carr. So I'm interested to see how this Buccaneer season turns out.
Yeah, I agree. I think your point about the Lions losing this game more so than the Buccaneers putting out a dominant performance is pretty compelling, especially when you look at the stats. Just to give you a little bit of a kind of idea of what I'm saying, uh, we know that the Buccaneers defense is okay, but it's like not certainly not one of the top dogs when it comes to efficiency or when it comes to what you would call like intimidation by any stretch of the imagination. The reason I'm saying that in this game is because they had 0 sacks put up against Aiden Hutchinson's 4.5 sacks just by himself alone, which as much as I dislike him, uh, I have to credit him for that work. Um, and to only score 16 points on a Buccaneers defense when your defense is doing those type of rounds, like, and here's the thing, the Buccaneers nearly had double the amount of yardage over the course of this entire game, and we're still only able to get 16 points. So, sorry, yeah, only able to get
Wait,
16
the
points. So,
Lions had double yards?
right, yeah, the Lions had
Oh, gotcha.
463
Because you
yards.
said
Yeah,
Bucks had
Lions.
double the yards.
Sorry, no, the Lions had double the Bucks yards and still were only able to get 16 points, 463 to the Bucks 216. And I think that raises major questions about some of the about like the scheme over there in Detroit. Obviously, you can't change things up to a great extent, but and maybe this is just a bad week for them. But yeah, this is a pretty ugly showing for them in week two.
I think this was mostly they couldn't. They had. I don't know how much you watch of this game, but the final seconds of the half, they went to spike the ball to kick a field goal, and they got an illegal
Yeah,
formation,
I remember
and
I did see that.
their red zone efficiency was awful. I think they were in the 10 within the 10, 15 yard line multiple times, so they just couldn't put it in the end zone. That's why they kicked so many field goals. So I think that is why the yards was so big. But I agree. I think this is more the defense is playing lights out. Aiden Hudson is he's putting the best defensive end numbers through the first 2 weeks. He has virtually been unblockable. No one had the two tackles he was on have not been able to touch him. And it's just red zone efficiency. We saw that a little week one, but they were able to put most of their possessions into the end zone. So it's just the play calling on offense that needs fixed. And I think they'll address that. They have great coordinators, so I have faith in the Lions to be able to change it moving forward.
Yeah, and it is only week two, and they were able to get that really great win against the Rams in week one. So it's not like you need to right the ship immediately or the season's over, but it's something to take into consideration going into the next couple weeks. Um, the next game we want to talk about, which is a game that I thought was especially surprising, was Sam Darnold leading the Vikings to a win over the San Francisco 49ers in a game that felt pretty out of reach for the Niners basically immediately. And the Lions and the Vikings were essentially walking over. Uh, it doesn't really feel like there was anything that the 49ers could do to stop. Uh, there were some, I don't know, I didn't watch much of this game, so I just saw some questionable headlines about some of the Brock Purdy play. But ultimately, I mean, I think the interesting candidate in this is Sam Darnold and his ability to still get that ball to uh, to Justin Jefferson in a way that in a pretty injury like they have some like non-negligible injuries as well. I'm pretty sure Addison was out for this game. Um, Aaron Jones had a fumble that like was right on the goal line as uh, like that Josh Jacobs fumble when in the game that they played against the Colts. So you would think that like with these two opportunities or like with these two, I guess like weak points within the offensive side of the Vikings that they would be able to capitalize on it, but it just didn't really seem like the 49ers were able to get on their feet.
So the three most quarterbacks that we've talked about to start off, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold. I don't think anyone was expecting that going in. Sam Darnold has looked great. He has not made mistakes. He's getting Justin Jefferson. He had that 90 what 7 yard touchdown
Yeah.
in the second quarter. Their offense is looking well, and I think Brian Flores has the 49ers offense figured out. One of the rare people to do it. You go back to last year and this year, it's very similar where he's made Brock Purdy look bad. Not very many teams have been able to do that. And I know all the Brock Purdy haters are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, he shouldn't have a job." It's he's playing bad against one team. Mahomes plays bad against one team. It's usually the Bengals because he makes mistakes against them. We can talk about that later. But uh Brock Purdy is allowed to have bad games without people
Yeah.
gunning for his job. Um Now, he obviously does not want to have these bad games, but it happens. You're gonna get confused by defense, and you got to give credit to Brian Flores, man. He has this defense up to shape, and Sam Darnold is doing his job. He's doing what he needs to. He's getting the right people involved, and the run game is looking great as well. So the Vikings, good to them. They're 2-0, yeah. So hey, the Lions the Lions had the Packers to worry about, and now it's looking like they got the Vikings to worry about in the North. So I'm excited. I'm interested to see how he continues to play because if he can keep playing like this, they should be in great shape going forward.
Yeah, the NFC North is shaping up to be the best division at this point, I think, from what we've seen. Like until the AFC North gets its act together and like the Bengals and Ravens start winning games and the Browns get an offense that looks even remotely watchable, I think that the NFC North is at this point at the top of the pack.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the AFC North will get their act together,
Yeah.
but yeah, if the Bears can figure it out, that may be maybe it's just the two North divisions of the AFC and NFC that are the best this year. So we'll see. Talking about AFC North, the Bengals fall to 0-2. I mentioned this game last week. I was disappointed in the Bengals week one. They came back, they bounced back great, better than I thought they would. Burrow made one mistake. It was that scoop and score. I'm still upset about the 4th and 16. Was it pass interference? Yes. After looking at it, it was pass interference, but there was two holding calls on the line that were very obviously missed. And I felt like holding on Trey Henderson was not called most of the game because they couldn't block him. He was getting there every play. It's just Mahomes was moving around. Like I remember me and Zach watched this game together. The play where Trey Henderson looked like in slow motion chasing Mahomes down the sideline. Like that's because he didn't get blocked and Mahomes just outran him. And like I'm just Cam Taylor Britt, by the way. My Lord. That was a great interception. But I'm confident in the Bengals because the way they bounce back, it looks like T. Higgins, I'm praying is going to be back this week. So and that will take attention off Jamar. I know he hasn't had the great 2 weeks. Half of that is him not practicing, and half is that being him being the only wide receiver threat, major wide receiver threat now. Yoshi, I can't say his last name. Number 80. That's just what I'm gonna.
Yosivach, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, had two touchdowns because he was able to make himself open. Um, uh, Burton had a catch. Irwin had a ball bounce right off his helmet. These will go down. The tight ends played well. The running game still needs a little bit work. I feel like we're still trying to find our true running back one between Chase Brown and Zach Moss. I am confident in the Bengals, and the Chiefs look good, but I feel like the Bengals got this game taken from them a little bit. That's my opinion. I'm obviously biased. Zach, let me know what you think and put me in check.
I think that, I mean, it's just the way things go, unfortunately. I don't necessarily think it was like a game stolen by the refs or anything. There's the saying that you could call holding on like every play in the NFL, and sometimes it gets called and sometimes it doesn't. I will agree with you. Like when you see Bengals fans going back and showing you on that play the holding call, like I am I do agree with you, and I do like I have felt this way before when I see like Miles Garrett getting held by by some guy or like getting like basically hands to the face on damn near every single play where someone feels incapable of blocking him. I get frustrated as well. The one thing that the one thing that I find to be something that the Bengals fans are looking over is that Mahomes did complete a 4th and 16 pass to put them in that position
Well, he didn't
before.
complete it.
Or there was what am I thinking? What am I thinking of?
It was like a 4th and 6 that he
I think it
completed, but
was okay,
the
yeah.
holding was called on that play. Or no, it was
Okay,
illegal
got it.
hands to the face because he took Trey Henderson's helmet off the tackle.
Got it. Well, yeah, and but he like still made it. So I don't know, man. I think that I think it's kind of there's going to come a point where you guys beat the Chiefs and they're going to be saying the same thing. And that's just the way things go between teams that have incredible quarterbacks and are let down by certain aspects of like a core of their team. Like for the Bengals, it was bound to be the defense, just because you guys are really young and pretty inexperienced and not very good, especially when it comes to like run blocking. But you guys had a great game. Like
Yeah,
you're especially your front seven, they had a great game. I feel like although there were some touchdowns, like and there were some explosive plays, I really thought that you guys were able to like put up a good performance. Like you said, the one-handed interception was crazy. Um, but I, but here's the fact of it is just when you have teams that are this good or teams that are like led by the caliber of quarterback that Mahomes and uh and Burrow are, you're going to these games are going to come down to the wire, and that's when these things shine. And and I think it's a good problem to have in the grand scheme of things. I'm sure it doesn't feel that way at 0 and 2, but you guys will get it together, and there will be a point where you beat him, and they'll be saying the same thing.
yeah. I mean, Burrow is still does have a winning record. I am gonna put this into evidence because I am petty. I'd like everyone to pay attention to this headlock that Trey Hendrickson is in, and that this was not called, by the way. That is not called. Now, I do agree with you. Um, if that pass interference wasn't called, the Chiefs would be saying the same thing Bengals fans are. So at I f- I'm saying this because I'm a Bengals fan. I feel like the Bengals were robbed, but obviously the game is the game. The Chiefs won. You got to give it to them because they still had to get more yards. Butker still had to make that kick, so they did win. I'm just a little upset about it, but I think there's a lot of great things to take away from both teams. Pacheco did get hurt, which is a bit unfortunate for the Chiefs. But like Bengals defensive wise, they forced what I think three turnovers for Mahomes because I think
Mhm.
it's two interceptions and then the Carson Steele fumble. So that's a great that's great a great like solution to the defensive problem that they had a week ago. So they did struggle in the run game, so they just need to sharpen that up. But we'll see. I think both these teams will potentially meet again, but I think they will both end up in the postseason as if they both stay healthy. So
Yeah, and although you guys did start 0-2, one of the teams that did like buck the trend and get the ship figured out was the Bengals. And I think with a team that like had some offseason drama, especially as it relates to T. Higgins, who hasn't even been playing, and then also like weirdly enough, Jamar Chase as well, out of nowhere. Like I think it's just something that you guys are going to need to be able to, or you're going to need to work out. And they've done it before. I mean, I think people are going to start kind of questioning Zach Taylor like as a play caller because they've talked about it before, but hopefully it'll die down once you
yeah,
guys start stacking up wins.
yeah, they just got to start getting wins on the board. But moving on to Monday night, Kirk Cousins leads the Falcons in the final minute to a game-winning drive, which with ease. Now, it felt like the Eagles had control the whole time,
Yeah,
even though like the Falcons had a lead at one point, but like the Eagles then came right back and responded. So it felt like Philly controlled this game, and then they just couldn't win it. It felt like went back to the end of the season last year. I don't know what I don't. I know that Saquon dropped the ball and it would have been a first down. Why not run him the ball? He had been running all over that team. I get getting him in space, but he's not. He can catch the ball, but he's bound to make drops like that because he's a running back. He doesn't go catch the ball. He gets the handoff and makes people miss. And he had been doing that all game. So I don't really like the 4th and 3 play call, even though it should have been converted. I think if it was converted, everyone would be like, "Oh my gosh, this is a great play call." I still don't think that's the best play that you can call in that situation. Um, but then like the defense did not just let them walk down the field and they were like, "Oh wait, they're too close," and then boom, Falcons touchdown. And it's just like Philly had this game won and they just couldn't finish it. Nothing to take away from Kirk Cousins. They look pretty good this season. The NFC South is looking better than I thought it was going to be outside of Carolina. So we'll see what happens to this Falcons team, but I feel like Philly had this game won and they should be 2-0 right now.
Yeah, totally. I one thing I'll say about this is like this is the like incredibly surprising that it came out of a coach like as competent as you might see from the Eagles, but also not surprising at all given who we know Nick Sirianni to be. I know like of course like hindsight is 2020, but like why not like kind of do like an option? I know we don't see this as much in the NFL, but why not do like an option thing with Jalen Hurts like and uh and Saquon, if you get sacked, you get sacked, like, and you're at least able to like burn a timeout or waste the clock. I don't know. They don't even have. I don't even know if they had
I think wasn't
timeouts at
that
this
on
point.
fourth down?
Yeah, it was on fourth down. So if they, oh, sorry, my bad. I'm compl- I'm thinking about the wrong thing. But anyway, why don't I have Jalen Hurts just keep it and like swing him out and then maybe try and make that through? Like to me, it doesn't make sense. Granted, I mean the throw should have been caught, but like when I remember I was talking to you when we were watching this game, like over like Discord together, and I basically had said that like Saquon looks like everyone else makes everyone else look like they're like moving through jello. Like he moves like 10 frames faster than everybody else, and it just didn't make any sense to put him out of his like element in that final moment. So to me, it just didn't make any sense. And I mean, I'm glad for Kirk that he was able to make that play because so many people have been detracting from him and saying that he can't do anything in in Monday Night Football. So I'm glad that he was able to make a comeback, and especially since he was like kind of catching a lot of flack from the offensive performance in week one. So I'm glad that Atlanta is able to say that they have at least something to look forward to in week three.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give credit to them because they got the win when it mattered. So
Yep.
they showed up in the clutch. They proved that they have ice in their veins a little bit. So we'll see. But I think that is all we need to talk about week two. Let's move on to week three. We will not. So we are recording this on Thursday, right before the Thursday night game. So we will not be pre predicting it because by the time this is up, it will the game will be past. So we're just gonna move to Sunday, starting at 1 o'clock games. First on the slate is Giants Browns. I don't think much needs talked about this except that the only reason the Giants had it close is because the Commanders have the worst secondary in football. Um, the Browns don't even need to like let Deshaun throw. They can just run it with Jerome Ford and Deontay Freeman and let their defense do what they do. So I have the Browns by a lot.
Yeah, I think that um we did see some more competent offensive play. I mean, there were some questionable like offense like tackle issues, and then of course like that stupid drive where Deontay like somehow had a face mask on offense, then two consecutive holding calls led to like a I think it was like a third and like 35 or something like that. So I we have to get the penalties cleaned up, and they have to definitely find a way like a solution. I think they're kind of fading Jerome Ford at this point and they're gonna kind of give more give more carries to Deontay because he almost looked like a Kareem Hunt like clone at that point, like with the aggressiveness that he was running. So if he can do that, if he can replicate that even at all, I think that's going to be enough to beat this Giants team. And like, man, did that offense look bad outside of everyone not named Malik Neighbors. So yeah, give me the Browns by this one.
Yeah, I think that game 100% America's going to pick the Browns. Moving on to a very interesting game. Now, Eagles Saints. We've talked about both these teams. One team start ended week two with a bang and killed the Cowboys. The Eagles choked a little bit. And I'm actually going to give this game to the Saints. I think that they're just going to keep riding how this game, keep it going, and they will beat the Eagles. I think this game will be closer than the Eagles Cowboys, but I just think Derek Carr will he'll ride this hot streak a little bit longer. Um, as long as he the ball keeps the ball not turning it over, they have a shot. And with the Eagles, they're looking to bounce back. I just think it's a quick turnaround then from them. They're still going to be thinking about Monday night. Um, and they will. fall short to this one and start 1-2.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Saints are gonna get this one in the bag. I think the the um the Saints offensive line is definitely going to be tested. We saw some good play from Jalen Carter that I thought was like encouraging a if you're a Eagles fan, so you should be excited about that. But the main thing I'm concerned about is like CJ Gardner-Johnson and Darius Slay being able to keep up with with Rashid Shaheed, and like if like Braden said, if Chris Olave is able to get away from either one of them, it's basically wraps. If it, granted, if that Derek Carr has protection, he's able to make those throws that day. But I don't know. I feel like they've caught a lot of criticism, and I feel like that's pretty warranted. And I feel like when you get punched in the mouth like that and you go straight into a game, like teams have a tendency to either rise to the occasion and kind of dispel the rumors. And I don't think we saw that out of like last year's team when that happened to the Eagles. So like I'm not saying that they're going to be on this like losing streak or whatever, but what I am saying is I'm expecting them to lose this game because they haven't given me any reason to pick them once something like this happens to them. And especially when they're going up against a team like this. If it was against like the Commanders or something like that, who like Brain likes to say, has barbecue chicken for defense, like I I would pick the Eagles hands down and say call this like a get back game. But yeah, I don't see this getting any better for them, especially or I would like for them to prove me wrong because then that would fix the issues that they had last season where they just kept tumbling and tumbling, tumbling down and failing. But I don't know, they haven't given me any reason yet to like believe the contrary.
Yeah. I I agree. They need to prove us wrong before we
Yeah.
start picking them again, I think, because we saw the collapse last year, and I think we're just kind of going off that, see how they played. Moving on to two 2-0 teams. Texans Vikings. I think the Texans defense absolutely shut down Caleb Williams and the Bears last week. They confused the young quarterback, and their offense was a little struggled a little bit. So I think this can be a defensive matchup. I am just banking that the old Sam Darnold is going to show up eventually. I don't know quite this game. I just think the Texans have too much on offense. If Joe Mixon can play, I know. I mentioned the hip drop tackles. The one against him was the really obvious one that should have been called that wasn't. Um, I hope he's okay. I I don't think it was anything too major. I feel like we would know by now. Although I haven't seen much on it. I think the Texans will win this close one, but it will be a defensive battle for sure. I think these are two underrated defenses going up against each other.
Yeah, they are certainly underrated. The Texans defense. Cleveland was on the other end of that in the playoffs last season, and we finally got our revenge against Jacksonville for making them go up against us. So at least I feel that was a cathartic experience. Um, One thing I'll say about the Texans is the Texans, like even though Caleb Williams was getting rid of that ball really quickly, he was getting blown up. Like he was getting like Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels level, like he was getting destroyed out there. And that frustration and like their inability to make things work on offense was kind of like permeating through the rest of the team. We saw DJ Moore like looking up at the sky, like depressed, and that's a whole other conversation. But I mean, I don't necessarily. I think that the Texans defense was really able to keep them messed up, and with a veteran like Sam Darnold, I think he's going to be better at not taking those hits and putting him in a position where he doesn't have to suffer that. But I think even though the Texans had like difficulty getting the ball moving, and there were like some stupid mistakes that they made against the Bears. Um, and they're going up against a really difficult NFC North team again, particularly NFC North defense in that of the Vikings. I think that the Texans will come out with a win, especially when you consider that Justin Jefferson is banged up. It's looking like he'll play, but who knows? I don't. I mean, you want him at his best, and he's always going to give his best. But like, if there's a team that I'm going to pick out of this, I'm going to pick the one that's healthier and has already proven that they can go on the road and win against a competent NFC North defense.
Yeah. I'm just saying though, if the Vikings can pull this off, I think it's gonna be eye-opening for a lot of people. If they, no one had, I have not seen a single person that expected them to start this season 3-0. I don't think they'll start the season 3-0, but if they do, my Lord,
Yeah.
watch out. But Broncos Bucks. Now, Bo Nix has struggled. I don't even like no quarterback, even CJ Stroud last year didn't start off that well. I believe they were 0-2 um last year. Like I don't know. I think it's what the Patriots are doing was smart. Jaden Daniels has looked all right, but like these rookie quarterbacks starting hasn't done well the past couple years. Maybe let them develop a little bit more before putting them right away. Um, Obviously CJ Stroud has been the one outlier in that the past couple years. I saw Peyton Manning talking about it because obviously he's close in the Broncos organization, so I think he sees the potential in Bo Nix. He's just getting adjusted to the NFL. So I think this is another tough matchup for him, another great defense he's going against. Um, and Baker has been playing lights out. This whole team was look out for Bucky Irving, who has been stepping up in the run game over Rashad White.
Hmm.
I think the Bucks win this one convincingly because I just don't think Bo Nix is ready. And I think if the Broncos had another quarterback, I think they should be playing him right now, but they just don't have another option at QB.
Yeah, and it doesn't get much better, especially when they have that Russell Wilson contract that they still are paying off. So like a really, really gross like time to be a Broncos fan, especially like it felt like I mean from what I've heard, I didn't watch most of this game. The Steelers Broncos one. It felt like the Broncos like actually were kind of controlling it defensively in the latter half of the Steelers game. And to not be able to capitalize on that at all, even with the weapons that you have with like Cortland Sutton and like Javonte Williams is like he, fantasy. He's been irritating fantasy owners for like fantasy like players like forever, and he hasn't really blossomed into what we expected him to be. Um, but he's still a competent running back when you're actually playing the game, and they just can't get anything done. So I have to pick the Bucks, who have been able to basically do virtually everything so far. There's no reason for me to. They have given me zero reason to root for them, so or to pick them over anything else. So let's go Bucks on that one.
Yeah. I I just think I think like I'm just comparing them to the Patriots who had Jacoby starting right now and they're off to a 1-1 start. I think they're doing the right decision, even though Drake May looked good in preseason. Bo Nix looked good in the preseason too, but you can see how that turns out. So just letting these young guys develop for maybe a season, um, or at least half of one could be beneficial for them. And just the Broncos can't afford to do it. So I just think that's the problem with them right now. It is the quarterbacks again. So we'll see how if Bo Nix can get better or if they'll be quick to turn around to something else. But Packers versus Titans. Jordan Love did return to practice this week. I don't think they risk him playing. There's no need, especially since they won last week. There's no need to rush. They were dominant against the Colts. They shut that Anthony Richardson offense down, made him look awful, and Will Levis had another iconic image in turnover again of even when their head coach is telling them you're a grown man, what the fuck are you doing? Telling that
Yeah,
to your quarterback is insane.
and he's
Like,
like in press conferences basically saying the same thing, just in like a nicer way.
yeah, I think I know he was the Bengals offensive coordinator last year. I just can't
Bill
remember his
Callahan.
name. Yeah, Bo Callahan. I just can't remember his name for the life of me, but I think he may be if Will Levis has another one of these turnovers, he may be looking to move on. Now, that may not be a possibility this season, but I think he's already starting to get annoyed with these little mistakes that Will Levis is making. On the other hand, I think the Packers defense has looked really good. Now the Eagles matchup was tough, but they made the Colts offense look like barbecue chicken. So I'm gonna take the Packers on the road, because it turned out LaFleur ball has looked enough to beat some of these lower end NFL teams. I think they win this game. It's on the road, so I think it will be close for a little bit, but I think the Packers win this one. Start 3-0 with Malik Willis, which is kind of surprising.
Totally. Um, I think it's actually possible that um Jordan Love plays. We've seen like him at practice. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Malik Willis plays, but there's no way in hell I'm picking the Titans after some of like the tomfoolery that we've seen. Like we've seen DeAndre Hopkins being virtually like eliminated as a player we talk about because he's on this offense. Like so I when you have an offense that's that bad, the only thing that I guess you can point to as being remotely successful about this team, or at least the offense, is that of Tony Pollard. It seems like he's taken a bit of a step up in this last season. So I'm happy that he has been able to see some sort of an improvement, but that has not moved over to Will Levis, who seems to have like had a regression over the offseason. So yeah, give me the Packers in this one.
Yeah, I think if Will Levis can stop these red zone turnovers, who knows? Because I mean, the week one they should have won. This game, I think Aaron Rodgers did and performed when he needed to. But like that turnover was huge. So I think it's honestly just on Will Levis. He needs to clean up his game. Everyone, we know it. Titans fans knows it, and the Titans head coach knows it. So that's what they need to go on. But moving on to who the Packers just played, Colts versus Bears. Um, I saw a very interesting take about Caleb Williams. A lot of people, I don't remember who said this, but someone was saying that Caleb Williams is not just as mentally tough as a lot of QBs are. And this goes back to his college days where he was refusing to talk to media after losses. He was in his mom's lap crying after a loss. And you saw on Sunday, CJ Stroud was trying to give him advice. I don't know if you saw this video, Zach, and Caleb Williams did not want any of it. And like, he was the rookie of the year, put himself in the top five quarterback conversation in 1 year. Why are you not listening to him? That's a little bit concerning for me with Caleb Williams. Because I think he learned last week that this is at college. You can't break a sack, spin around, and throw it in the triple coverage, expect your receiver to come down with it. So I haven't seen anything from Caleb Williams for me to pick them. Their defense has played well, and Anthony Richardson did struggle at Lambeau this week, but I think I saw enough from this offense week one, the Colts was, to for me to pick them, especially this. I don't think Caleb Williams has thrown a touchdown yet. So I think the Colts can win this game, especially since it's in Lucas Oil. Give me the Colts by 2 possessions.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Colts. I think that Anthony Richardson is going to have games like this in his career where it's kind of like it's very until he gets better, or at least more like because when you think about it, like he hasn't really had like a he hasn't not even close to as like full of a season as CJ Stroud has. So it's he still has some things that he needs to work on, but like there's it's almost like when we talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, we talk about Karis Liver. It's like he spins a wheel, and that's the player he's going to be. For Anthony Richardson, he's either going to make the best play you've ever seen in his life, or like some of the worst. Now it's not going to be Will Levis bad, but like he might make some really stupid boneheaded decisions. Um, and for some reason, I'm just feeling good about it. I think that the raw athletic talent that he brings is going to be good enough for this team. He does have to get Michael Pittman like involved a little bit more. I would like to see Adonai Mitchell just actually kind of become a central figure of this offense as well. And I really hope that Richardson's going to be able to get it to him, but maybe it can start here. But I'm going to pick the Colts.
Yeah. I I think Anthony Richardson, he only played 4 games last year, so last week was his sixth game. He's still in that learning process a little bit. He has been through 2 training camps, so I think these mistakes, but this is kind of almost like the second half, like a part of his rookie year, just because his year was so short last year. Um, but I think he is a little bit better right now than Caleb Williams.
Hmm.
That's why I picked the Colts. Moving on to two 2-0 teams that I don't think either of us were expecting with the Chargers and Steelers. I think a lot of us thought the Steelers would lose one of these games. The Chargers, I looking at this, but I think I don't know if I picked them to be 2-0. I definitely picked them last week. I like the way the Chargers look right now. They're playing great defense and they're running the freaking ball well. And Jim Harbaugh, that's his game. Now, Justin Herbert hasn't been the throw for 400 yards the way he has the last couple years, but that hasn't worked. They didn't win a playoff game that way. Now, throwing for 400 yards is really good and it can put you up points, but they're playing great defense. Jesse Minter is doing a fantastic job right now, and they're getting the run game involved. I like the way these Chargers look. I think they beat the Steelers because I'm not. Who knows if I don't know if they're going to keep starting Fields or if Wilson's healthy to the point where he can play. Who knows? It is in Pittsburgh. I just trust Jim Harbaugh. I think the Chargers win this one. It's going to be close. But well, this is if Herbert plays, which I'm expecting him to. If Herbert plays, it's a completely different story. But I'm thinking Herbert's going to play and Chargers win.
Yeah, I think that it's this is actually one of the Steelers are unfortunately going to get out of as well with it being at home. Um, I really Justin Fields has been able to make things work, and I hope that for his sake that he's able to continue being the starter. There were some concerning issues about last week's game, like we said, with the Broncos kind of like controlling the ball game, especially in the second half. Um, they're probably not going to be able to do that against this Chargers team, and they're gonna have to be way more productive offensively. I just think when you're at home and you have a potentially injured Justin Herbert who's gonna play, who it looks like will play, but who knows if he's gonna be 100%. I think that this is one of the games that Steelers win. Uh, I'm not. I think if these teams meet again later on, it's very possible the Chargers get things moving and they would be able to win. However, I think at this point early on in the season, TJ Watt's going to be able to have too much of an impact. Now, I am excited to see if Joe Wall is going to be able to hold him. He has been playing great against especially against Max Crosby, which is something that you wouldn't expect out of a rookie on his first game. But I'm really excited. I hope that I get highlights of TJ Watt getting stuffed by a rookie. Um, but I just have the feeling that they're going to come out of this with a win.
Yeah, yeah, Herbert's health is the big question mark. I just think I don't think Harbaugh will, if Harbaugh doesn't think he can play to his full potential, he showed this at Michigan, he won't have Herbert play. I just think, I mean, TJ Watt and Joel is very interesting. I just think the Chargers get it done. Now, we are moving on to the 4 o'clock slate now. And I was very critical of the 4 o'clock slates the first 2 weeks and last season and how they sucked. As I'm looking down the list this week, that is quite the opposite. We're starting off with Dolphins Seahawks. Now, if Tua is healthy, this would be a great game. But Tua is on a IR. Everyone knows about his concussion. I don't know about the whole retirement thing. I think that could be an overreaction. I'm not a doctor though, so give me the Jim Harbaugh answer. Say it. I am not a professional, so I cannot answer that question. But I I don't know who their backup quarterback is off the top of my head, and I don't think it's
Skylar
gonna.
Thompson.
Yeah, no, yeah, give me the Seahawks, man. If Kenneth Walker plays, especially, give me the Seahawks. Was
I think
two
even if
out.
Zach Charbonnet plays, I think I'd pick the Seahawks too. Like with I think last week they barely ran at all in the second half, or it was like the end of the third quarter. They were airing it out when we saw like a basically a legacy game since the Rose Bowl of JSN's year. That's was his most productive game since the Rose Bowl. And it seems that Gino's really can pick anyone out of this offense. We kind of saw Tyler Lockett kind of phasing out, so it seems that JSN's probably taking that place, but he obviously has DK Metcalf in there as well. And then with Zach Charbonnet, and I obviously don't think he's good as Kenneth Walker, but he's no slouch either. Um, it's going to take the Dolphins a little while to kind of like get their offensive, I don't know, vision back, I guess. And with a team this like lacking in morale after losing their starting quarterback, I'm going to pick the Seahawks as well.
Yeah. Now, I talked about the 4 o'clock being like this is the one bad game in it. Panthers Raiders. Bryce Young has been benched. I agree with Adam Thielen that it's more of a Panthers offense problem, not a Bryce Young problem. Who knows if Andy Dalton is that answer? I think the Panthers are thinking that. Um, with how old he is, I'm not sure about this. Give me the Raiders because Max Crosby is going to have a field day.
Yeah, I completely agree. Andy Dalton is, I mean, I think it's going to take a while for him to get settled in. And you really don't have many options on, like, everyone looks bad on this team, man. Like, everybody. From the running backs to the tackles to the wide receivers. And, I mean, the defense, they have at least some playmakers, but, like, I'm mostly focusing on the offense, like, because that's been the most egregious. Um, I don't, even with Deontay Johnson and is Adam Thielen still there?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
that's who I
yeah,
was talking
Adam
about.
Thielen.
He said in an interview this week, basically defending Bryce Young, saying that I know this isn't just a Bryce Young problem, it's a Panthers offense problem. So he was kind of that veteran was sticking up for
Yeah.
his young QB, which I like to see. Saying it looks like some of the people on that offense does not like the decision of Andy Dalton playing, but so yeah,
Yeah,
Adam
I'm
Thielen is
taking the
that team.
Raiders here.
Yeah.
Um, let's move us on to the 49ers versus Rams, which a couple weeks ago was a great game and now I think is going to be pretty mediocre at best. Um, to put this in perspective, Cooper Kupp's going to be out, Puka Nacua is going to be out. You're sending Matthew Stafford out there with five offensive linemen on IR. Five against Fred Warner and the rest of the 49ers
Nick
defense.
Bosa.
Nick Bosa, certainly not a slouch either. Like, dude, do you want Matthew Stafford to die? Because it seems like you want Matthew Stafford to die. I think that this game is going to be really, really, really ugly. I think Matthew Stafford is going to be able to get the ball to the receivers, but like these guys are not playmakers like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And I think this is probably like when we talked about teams that are able to get their get back, the 49ers are going to have a get back. I think that they should be pretty confident that they can go and get this win. I have seen no reason why I should pick the Rams.
Yeah, if Cup and Nakua were in there, I'd be a lot more confident in the Rams just because they're both hurt. This has been the one team that has been plagued by injuries so far. So give me the 49ers, although the Rams seem to play the 49ers well when they're in SoFi, so that is a thing to look out for. But I want to move on to this next game because I think this next game is going to be, these next two are going to be great. Lions, Cardinals in Arizona. Now, the Cardinals, we saw them pick apart the Rams last week. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a great first quarter, and then he did kind of disappear, but I feel like that you shouldn't look into that too much. Their run game was great. Their defense is great. They held Cooper Cup was unstoppable week 1. He did get hurt, but when he was in the game, he was kind of locked down. Now the Lions, we talked about how their Aiden Hutchinson has looked great, and I think that's going to be a problem because I don't think they'll need to blitz that much against this Cardinals team, and hopefully be able to contain Kyler, which the Rams struggled with. It's the Lions play calling. I think they get this fixed. I think this is going to be a barn burner close game. I have faith in Dan Campbell more than I have in the Cardinals. So give me the Lions in a very close game, and this is the most exciting game of the week.
Yeah, I think this is also a great game. It's hard. I don't know if the Cardinals are going to be able to. Sorry, the Lions are going to be able to get to Kyler Murray in the way that they were able to get to Baker. Obviously, Kyler's a lot smaller and he's able to be moving the pocket in a way that no one really can. So I'm and he able to get out of the pocket really well as well, um, so to speak. But I think I think I'm actually going to take the Cardinals on this one. Um, I really like what I'm seeing out of Greg Dortch, and I'm really excited, and who seems to be like the shorter option in comparison to Marvin Harrison Jr., who's just going to burn everybody if you give him the opportunity. Um, I also am really liking what I see out of James Conner. So I I'm while I do have concerns about the defense, I think that the offensive capabilities are going to outshine uh, Detroit in this game, and I don't know if Detroit's going to be able to keep pace. Um, I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I think it's going to be really close, but I think that the Cardinals will come out with a close win.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the Cardinals winning this easily. But I think this is going to be a very competitive, very entertaining game, as I've said. And I mean, yeah, it's a pivotal matchup. Could come useful to have this win later down the line in the season. And this next 4 o'clock or maybe 4:25, whatever, same category game is very interesting because the Ravens can start 0-3 going down to Dallas, and the Cowboys are looking to bounce back. I think that the thinking about it, I think that Cowboys may have been looking up to this game a little bit. Now, I talk about looking ahead a lot. That's more of a problem in college than it is in NFL, but I don't know with the Cowboys. I do think the Ravens will find a way to win this game, though. I th they lost to the Raiders last week. They just couldn't get their offense figured out. Um, but they played a really close game against the Chiefs. It was literally one toe away from potentially winning that game. So they've looked good, sort of like the Bengals, who are 0-2 as well. They have a much tougher game right now than the Bengals do this week. But give me the Ravens in a close one. I think the Cowboys are still going to be trying to pick up the pieces from last week, and their defense will look better, but give me the Ravens.
I think that this point, like this shows how good these games are because I disagree with you. I think that the Cowboys are going to be able to get this one done at home. I think that the fact that these Baltimore games have come down to one play over the past couple of weeks, like consecutively, I just don't think that the Cowboys are going to allow that. I think that this game if they're playing like they've been playing against the Chiefs and against the Raiders, I think this game could potentially be over by the third quarter. Like I'm not saying that it would be like a blowout or anything, or like when I say it's over, I think it's just going to be like to the point where we have come to the conclusion that the Ravens offense just cannot get anything going. We saw against the Chiefs major offensive line concerns, and I think that CD Lamb is going to be able to expose some of the holes that the corners offer the Ravens defense. So I would be concerned if I was a Ravens fan. Like this is not a good game to be going into, especially since you have to travel down to Dallas to try and get this done. Granted, they did stink up the bed at home last week, so maybe you can catch them kind of as they're reeling back towards the ropes. But I think the Cowboys will be able to adjust the course and get it done against a Ravens team which has tried to skirt by on two separate games. It hasn't worked. I don't think that they're going to be able to give them those chances again,
Yeah,
or they're going to get those chances against a Dallas defense like
I
this.
mean, imagine the Ravens starting 0-3. We talked about how surprising it would be the Vikings start 3-0, and you can spin that right around with the Ravens. I don't
Yeah,
think anyone predicted this going in, and it very well can happen. And that's proven. I don't think anyone in a long time has been 0-3 and gone back to the playoffs. So
I will be hate watching this game.
yeah, we'll see about that. Moving on to Sunday night, Chiefs Falcons. The Falcons did get the win last week in Philly. I don't think that's the case this week. I think Mahomes and this offense will be too much, even though they will be without Pacheco. I think they get Kelsey a little more involved this week. I think the Chiefs win in Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a fun story last week. I think that the Falcons will try and play up to the Chiefs because their defense is really good, and if Patrick Mahomes is still making the mistakes, um, now like you said, like there's just some teams that these star quarterbacks are naturally mistake prone to, and the Bengals are that team for Patrick Mahomes. But if he like makes even one or two mistakes, like I think that this Falcons defense is going to be able to capitalize on that. They're really solid, especially like Jesse Bates they picked up from Cincinnati. Um, so I mean, I think it'll be closer than we think, but I think the fun ends here for Atlanta. I think the Chiefs are gonna keep winning.
Yeah. Moving on, Monday night doubleheader this week. We saw this a little bit last season. It's back. First, we're starting off, I think it's 7:30 kick, Jaguars Bills. Um, the Bills have looked great, 2-0. Their Cardinals win looks a lot better now. After last week, and the Jags looked like they struggled against the Browns last week. So give me the Bills. It's in Buffalo. Give me them by probably two scores, I would think. I want them to look to get Keon Coleman more involved, though. I think that's the one thing they've struggled with.
Yeah, there's no way in hell I'm picking the Jags. They have made some of the like biggest bonehead decisions, and I felt like when the Browns were playing them, they got a massive break on a couple of occasions. Now, the red zone efficiency looks absolutely awful. The only good thing I've seen in the red zone for out of Trevor Lawrence in this season was that pass to Brian Thomas Jr., which admittedly was amazing, but like it just seems like they're out of sync as soon as they get enter that past the 20-yard line. Give me the Bills in this one and a fairly dominant performance by Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I'll say but the last thing before we go over into this like last game, I feel like we should be able to like as fans be able to like vote like a game into like if we were doing this like Monday night, like we should be able to take a game from the Sunday slate and put it here instead of one of these crappy games. Like I would much rather watch Ravens versus Cowboys on Monday night than Commanders versus than Jags versus Bills. Like that is awful. Like that this should be a 1 p.m. game.
Yeah,
But
I think there's a lot. You can't have the same teams on, like the Chiefs would be on prime time every week if they could,
yeah, that's a good point.
but so they got to spread it
Especially with
around.
Taylor Swift. Yeah.
Yeah, they got to spread it around a little bit. I think that's just what they're trying to do. That's why we've seen
Yeah.
like the Jets be on prime time, the Broncos, all that. But I do agree. They have in the last couple of years. I think you can flex a Monday night game now. It just has to be a certain amount of weeks in advance.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know if we've seen that yet. But last game is Bengals Commanders. Commanders, you said it. They have a barbecue chicken secondary, worst secondary in the league. I think this is the week Jamar gets going. Hopefully T gets going as well. I liked what I saw out of the Bengals last week. It'll probably be close at first, knowing the Bengals. But I think the Bengals won this one. Give me the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean they might come out of the gate playing down a little bit, but then I think the standard Bengal season will come into form and this is where the uptick begins and I think we will see a Bengals win out of this one. I for my sake hope that Jamar gets going. I certainly hope that Joe gets going as well because he's on my fantasy team where I'm 0-2. And man, he has to get his act together, or else we're starting to Kyler Murray. He's gonna, he's gonna take your spot. But with that in mind, we really appreciate you all for sticking around with us into week three. We got a good couple of games going forward on, so we're definitely going to be talking about some of those for sure. As long as they're not complete letdowns like some of the games that we've had before. But seriously, thank you again for listening. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next, hopefully before Thursday, so we're able to cover this. I've just been moving, kind of crazy life, but thanks again.
Peace.
Peace.